is all right with you.
And Mark, on the following pages, I don't think it talks about licenses and permits. We predicted that we would have in 2017, 766,000, and our projected end of year is in revenue is 497. That was the biggest one that I saw. Is there?
Yeah, I'd like to go through the rest of this, and then we can certainly talk about a lot of that in a follow-up to the summary data or during the detailed budget workshops, where the source of these changes are going to be hopefully a little bit more apparent.
On page 11, Mark, can you just, for my educational benefit here, explain the last two columns? Percent change budget 17 to 18 versus percent change projected to 18.
Well, the percent change budget to 17 to 18 compares the 2017 adopted budget to the 2018 proposed budget. And the change from the 2017
Projected 17 to the budget at 18.
Correct, sir.
You've answered my question. Yeah.
So the projected is the actuals to date, and then you're projecting out.
It's our best guess at the moment.
Right.
Yeah, it's the best guess for December 31st, right?
Yeah, well, January 31st. But it's interesting because, again, our budget numbers do not always come in as we move through the year. So that's, again, on a global scale, gives you a high-level look to see some of those nuances as we go through and develop some of our current year budgets. Pages 12 and 13 really just give you the breakout on page 11 by fund, because the all funds roll up can be very distorting in certain lenses. So it just shows you where those pieces of that pie come from, in which funds. Not really comparative data, but at least for 2018, you will see how those breakouts and the sources of some of those funds. And again, we'll have some more breakout details here, starting on pages 15 and 16, I think.
Would it be helpful to footnote under economic development why there's no activity projected? I think it's because we transferred the funds, right?
What page are you on?
I was just on the roll-up for page 13. It says economic development expenditures, and it has 0.
We'll go to page 13. There's
Oh, I see, okay.
economic development in the TID funds.
Okay.
I do the same thing with my schedules. These are big spreadsheets. So then we looked at, again, through a different lens, our expenditures. We call this expenditures by object, which are your broad-based expenditure categories. So salary, wages, fringe benefits, other governments, right down the line, comparative data between them. I do have one note on this page, and I'll just tell you now because I might not have it noted on a subsequent page. Professional fees, you see there's an increase in that, and that is predominantly due to a change on how those fees are being presented in 2018 in the marketing fund compared to how they were budgeted under a myriad of other activities in the 2017 budget. So that's the primary source of that change, and we can look for that when we get to that fund at a future budget workshop. It should be pretty clear. We have a subtotal for operating, 1.7% in total for expenditure changes.
You still on page
I'm on page 14, sir.
1.7%.
So that's the magenta or red line going kind of striking across.
Gotcha.
And below that line are the categories that change from year to year without necessarily a direct year-to-year trend. But we run the comparative numbers on them anyways. But without a lot of additional context, it's hard to judge that. Operating are much more predictable and year-to-year trending, so.
What's in program?
We'll have some details on that coming up.
Okay.
And Mark, is it right to say the 20.8%, even though it adds up all the budget change, so in general, our expenditures are going up, is it 20.8%? Regardless of.
If you don't mind including 2 years of debt finance capital in that year-to-year comparison, that would be accurate.
Can you say that again? So there's 2 years of,
Well, we have some very significant capital improvements that's going to drive these capital funds from 4 million and change up to 9.6 million. So
That's the 800.
that's one of the primary reasons why I put the subtotal in there,
Yeah, that's
because
that's
below that line, it's year-to-year initiatives in many cases. Debt service is a little more stable, but capital, economic development, other financing uses, all change or can change without a direct trend from year to year. So there's no inherent progression in that necessarily.
Above the line, can you comment on insurance going up 17%?
Yes, I have some information on that coming up later in the presentation. Page 15 is a overview of our authorized positions. There were 2 computational errors at the bottom of 16 and 17. The bottom line, instead of change from previous year for 2016 at 0.4, it should be minus 1.7.
where are you? I'm sorry.
Change from previous year, 2016.
You're on page 15 here.
Yes, sir.
2016?
In 2016, the table shows 0.4 positions change. The correct number is negative 1.7. And in 2017, it shows negative 1.4. And the correct number is positive 0.3. And I do apologize, it was a cell reference challenge that I did not correct before this was printed. Should be noted that 2018 reflects budgeted, not authorized positions. And I'll have some more details on that as we get further into the presentation. Page 16 is just a relational chart. It's nothing new, doesn't have a real budget impact.
But just to be accurate, under police, do they also utilize the parking fund?
Pardon me?
Do they also utilize the parking utility as a fund?
No,
We don't pay salary, a fourth of the salary out of parking utility?
that's not how I would characterize it.
Okay,
The police do a chargeback
okay, it just, I know.
equivalent to a certain amount of salaries, but you know, salaries are in the police department organizationally, and then the reimbursement comes from those costs. A portion of those costs comes from the parking fund.
And then just, we separated the clerk and the treasurer's office, so I didn't know if the funds underneath the clerk, if they move to now finance, if they get eliminated beyond just the parking utility and general fund.
Let me look at that. Let me look at that and give that some thought, because we also combine the clerk and customer service departments.
Yeah.
So,
We can update that.
the framework is really organizational, and that is, you know, when you see in the budget, in the appendix section, there are staff within these funds that are allocated to different functional areas, and this is kind of, was supposed to be a micro capture of that to show that, you know, staff resources in these areas do go to the, you know, a variety of other areas. But let me look at that and see if the analysis can be updated.
And then for funds, I think there's 2 more. It would be marketing and Shorewood today. And they're not on this, but I don't know.
Yeah, there's no village staff in those funds, so that wouldn't be,
Okay.
those are all contracted services. Page 17 Gets down really just to the general fund now, not all funds. Variety of different summary and aggregate looks at just the general fund. It's our primary operating fund. It's where most of our customer interactions come from, either in public works, police, administrative divisions, and the like. Page 18. This chart you should all be familiar with. It's our big roll-up. Again, strictly general fund, property taxes, revenues, and expenditures by nature of service, general government, public safety, public works, health. I do have another note here, and this will be in my details, but I just wanted to make sure that it is clear that we are not actually expecting intergovernmental revenue to increase 5% in 2018, but within the state transportation aids, those funds are split between the general fund and capital projects funds, and that shift changes from year to year. When looking only at the general fund, that can produce numbers. State aids are projected to be pretty much unchanged in 2018.
Can you explain what surplus applied means? I see it a lot, just a brief. Is it just surplus from that fund from the prior year?
The surplus applied in this context would pretty much mean fund balance from prior
From the
years.
prior years?
Yes.
Whatever's remaining, okay.
Page 19 is a pictorial representation. Shows you the concentrations in graphical form. Again, when you look at numbers and percentages, sometimes you see big percentages on small numbers, which can be a little misleading. So there's a distribution of our revenue and expenditure compositions in graphical form. Page 20 then starts getting into a look at the specific revenue line items as presented by department. Again, all these will be covered in much more detail when we get into the departmental budgets. I do want to make one note though in court fines. It's now being presented under the court, not in the police department. That's just a presentation change. But there's a significant budgetary shift in that. In the 2017 budget, 2016 was forecast at $180,000. So 2017 budget was forecast at $180,000. Well, now we know that we're really projecting $130,000 in 17. We see those trends are, and looking at that, plus some of our process improvements, we're now looking at $143,000 budget line items. So that's one of our significant budgetary issues for 2018. As a side note, right now we're using some placeholders for Time Warner cable fees and AT&T cable fees. See third and fourth lines underneath the village manager's presentation section. These will be items that I'll be looking to update in the wrap-up session with the village board later in October once I get the third quarter payments in. Right now we've only got 2 payments out of 4, and we'll just see what those trends hold. We try to be conservative on revenues, so if anything, they'll be adjusted upwards, but from a starting perspective, we try to be conservative with our revenues. And just a point of interest, because it looks like they are trending down slightly. Whether they're going to trend down that much, I just would feel much more comfortable waiting until I see the actual third quarter payments before I recommend to the board to increase those budget line items.
Oh, can I just make a note before you flip the page? Here too, you might want to take out the treasurer and any expenses in that budget and move them over to finance. I don't know if they're right.
Well, that's a departmental division. It has nothing to do with. I can certainly change the heading to clerk customer service, But it's just where they're presented, it's not related to any treasure activities.
And then, later on, if it's not now, but the operator's license, I don't, what goes into that? What goes into that number?
I think those are pretty much part-time licenses, right?
Operator's licenses are too. It's alcohol licenses, we look at licenses.
Your roll-up, you have fines as a big category. And then we got these detailed charts.
What page are you on?
Well, I'm looking at page 18, one of the revenue numbers is like fines. 617,000. And here you have parking fines. Is there
Page 18?
the 2,100, the,
Well, if you go to page 21,
okay.
which ironically is the next page in the presentation,
Okay.
under police fines, you will see that we are projecting our 2017 parking fines for parking citations to come in at $450,000 in 2017.